humans, my name is Dale Kingsmill and we're doing a D&D campaign diary video today. As per usual, I'm going to be timing myself, trying to give myself a limit of 10 minutes within which I can talk about it, because otherwise I go on forever. And yes, to those of you who are curious, this is the second time I've tried to film this. It's all coming up Millhouse. Alright, where did we leave off last time? This time, playing D&D with my friends, we finally got together for another game, so our second session has been about, 5 or 6 months after the initial game day thing, so that's not, ideal. And a few of my players were very vocal about this, that they couldn't remember what had happened last time because it's been so long, but I think I did a pretty good job of recapping what had happened in the previous session, so it was mostly okay. P.S. if you haven't seen the first episode of this campaign diary, this probably won't make much sense, so if you want to go and see it and get caught up, I'll chuck a card up in the corner so that you can actually have a clue. Hey. So what did they do this time? At the end of last session, they had been tasked by Judge Will and Brightheart, the sort of de facto leader of the small fairy village of Glasstide, situated in the middle of a magical swamp. They'd been tasked by him to bring them the aid of Kindred Maw, who is a huge crocodile that comes in and terrorizes the township, and in particular now it has been encroaching on the feeding territory of other creatures and pushing them closer and closer into town, making it more dangerous. Now, a lot of you will recognize this as a terrible idea for probably any DM, let alone a first time one. I'm already dealing with a group of 6 players, which was unexpected. I thought I would have 5, then I added a 6th just before the first session, and then this time I actually I added another player to the group. Probably not a great idea, but also I figured at this point, I'm already running a huge group for a first time DM to be running, so it's already gonna be hectic and complicated. Why not throw in another one? It'll be fun. And it was, so there. But I will have to deal with that in the future, I'm sure. No, this character is Hylas, an elf monk, and I had to work out a way to introduce his character, and after talking with Daniel, the player, about exactly who Hylas was and what his background was, things like that, I actually found a pretty easy in for Hylas into the group, which was that as an elf in this town that is predominantly, the demographic is almost 50-50 halfling and human, there is only one elf who lives in the town, and that is the hunt captain, Alicia Once-Tall, who the group had been told they should visit to get better information on where exactly Kindred Maw nests. And so she's kind of the cop of this small village, and when they showed up, there's one elf in the party who Alicia had already kind of looked at strangely in the previous session. Originally it was just meant to be this idea that she's like, oh look, another elf, I haven't seen one of them in a long time. But this time I got to make it more relevant by suggesting that Alicia had just arrested Hylas for disturbing the peace, and seeing 2 elves in this place where usually there aren't any, she'd made the connection and just assumed that these 2 elves were part of the same group of people. And so as soon as the party arrived to ask about the crocodile, Alicia had Hylas pulled out from a side room and said that they could take him back now, and that his bail would be posted at 300 gold pieces. So initially the party were super excited. They were like, yes, give us this random elf character from the police holding. And then as soon as I put a price on it, it complicated things a little bit. And of course I was always going to let him go with the party. I just wanted that sort of interaction between Alicia and Kylerin, the group's elf ranger, about, oh, he's not one of ours. Which worked out, because then I had Alicia, of course, just say that he could go with them to fight the crocodile as his community service, so that he would head off with the party anyway, and they'd have a reason to stick together, at least for the first adventure. So that all worked out. It nearly didn't. We nearly didn't have our elf ranger for the session because she was on the verge of getting sick. Thankfully it all worked out, but I had a little bit of a panic the night before trying to work out exactly what I would do to fix it, to introduce Hylas to the group and to somehow write the ranger out of the group and then back in again afterwards for next session so quickly. I think I ended up deciding that because she's a ranger from a place called Auden's Keep, I said that Alicia would recognize her raiments as the official order of rangers, the Auden's Order, I never thought of that, and ask her to help keep an eye on the town, on the borders. She needed people with keen eyes. But Thankfully, we didn't have to do that, so hey, didn't have to worry. The other big change that I had to make, because I expected them to get to fighting Kindred Maw at the end of the first session, but it didn't happen, I suddenly had to work out something for the party to do in between, because otherwise they'd just be jumping immediately into a climactic battle, which felt wrong because then they'd be ending the session on really minor stuff, which maybe that would have been fine, but it's not what I wanted to happen. So instead, I decided that the hunt captain would only be able to help the party by giving them incident reports and witness statements about attacks that the crocodile has made. So that way they could get a visual description and kind of maybe explore the town a little bit by talking to these witnesses, which I didn't actually anticipate they would do, but they totally did. Alicia sort of said that unfortunately Kindred Maw seems to nest outside of my hunting range, but you can speak to one of the Burrofids, who are kind of this old blood family who's lived here for like hundreds and hundreds of years, because their father, Lot, used to go on expeditions into the swamp, and he was one of few people who seemed to be able to navigate this magical swamp, and like he could go off for weeks at a time and come back without a scratch on him. So maybe somewhere in his expedition journals they could find some helpful information. So that worked out. They went to visit Bliss Burrofid, who is kind of the only cleric in the town. She's a priestess of Eristil, because keep in mind as well, more terrible decisions for a first-time DM, but hey, I'm confident it'll work out fine, so confidence is key, right? I have mashed together 5th edition and Pathfinder for this game, mostly because I really like the 5th edition game system. I like how it plays, but I really don't like its character creation. I mean, maybe that's simplifying it. It's not like I hate the character creation, but it's just, I think that in a bid to emphasize roleplay and character background, 5th edition D&D has actually limited the things that you can do with your character, and I didn't want that to happen. So we created characters in Pathfinder, and then I've done a whole lot of tinkering to make it play with 5th edition's game system. And it might be totally unbalanced, but my focus is on keeping the characters having as much fun as each other. And like, if I need to throw stronger monsters at them, then so be it, because I just gave them the best bits of both systems, basically. I've finally finished putting together class progression tables, so I might be a little bit crazy, but I think that it's gonna work out. Hey, don't judge me. But yes, they got the information from Bliss that Lot kept his journal in his desk drawer in the office he built above the boathouse on their private property. They went down there, they fought a colony of what I call flycatchers, which were like big old lizards. I think that's what I technically called them when I drew up their stat blocks. They were basically like monitor-sized lizards that had a shock bite ability that would just lose their reaction. It was kind of like shocking grasp. And they just had to fight 3 of these lizards, so it was just a fairly minor combat. Oh my gosh! Why am I never prepared? This has happened before. You haven't seen it, but it's happened before. In fact, I filmed 2 D&D videos this week, and they both ended up, I wasn't happy with either of them, and they were very boring. There is only one usable piece from any of it, and it is this. So instead of that, oh my gosh! I set the timer, I shouldn't be this frightened when it goes off. Ha 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 ha! Where was I before I got terrified? Party kills all the lizards, they head on upstairs, or 2 of them do anyway, the cleric, Orvin, the half-orc, and Addie, the half-elf rogue. And of course, Addie tries to pick the lock on the drawer. It doesn't work out, they end up snapping the drawer open with a sword. And at this point, I wasn't sure whether I was going to do this, but I decided in the end that I would. As soon as Addie lifted the journal out of the drawer, a glyph lit up from beneath it, and the suit of armor in the corner lit up with a similar blue glow, and it came to life and began attacking. And actually, I didn't anticipate that it would work out this way, but Addie was knocked unconscious by the effect, and everyone was kind of a little bit freaked out by this, but thankfully, I mean, the life domain cleric was in the room with her, and so rebuke death, she was fine. But there was a little bit of panic for a round there, as everyone starts hearing the stomping from upstairs and rushes up to try to help. It was really bizarre having these combats with 7 different people, all characters who are described as really tall except for one, and they're fitting into this this halfling building that's just a boathouse. So it was like a really small room, and the room upstairs, the office, was even a little bit smaller than that, so everyone kind of charging in and trying to take up some of the space in order to get in on this combat was really interesting. Some nice little maneuvers did happen in that combat, actually. Polnedra, specifically Polly the sorcerer, she rushed in and immediately cast Mage Hand in order to take the journal away from the suit of armor and let the fighters fight. And as the suit of armor tried to follow the journal to protect the journal, Hylas attempted to attack it, and he got shoved to the ground with one attack, and the suit of armor nearly stomped on his head with the other, but just missed, which was lucky for Hylas because he does not have that many hit points. But in amongst all of this, I had it written in my notes that because it could do so much damage, this suit of armor, and it fits for story reasons, which I'm sure you'll find out at some point, the suit of armor would only last for 3 rounds, or if it knocked someone out, the light would begin to flicker and it would start to sputter out and the magic wouldn't last for much longer. But as I described the blue light sputtering in the suit of armor, people began to make checks to see if there was anything else around the room that was flickering at the same time, and so I described, sure, why not? The glyph in the drawer is flickering in time. And so someone rushed over really quickly and began scratching out the glyph that had been drawn into the bottom of this drawer as a magical trap, almost. And why the hell not? It worked, and the magic that was keeping the suit of armor alive died out, and so it stopped and they managed to escape with the journal and with their lives. So that was nice. At this point we were about to lose our ranger and our barbarian, both of whom were the only ones who could really make tracking checks to try to navigate the swamp using the maps that they gained from Lot Baraford's expedition journals, which I described, by the way, as being, it was very odd. They were looking at these maps and they could see that it had drawn over it the lay of the swamp. It looked like a swamp, but the map that actually existed underneath was not of swampland. It sort of seemed to be just measurements of hilly altitude amongst a few other things, but it definitely wasn't swampland. But yes, Kylerin, who my player and the character are both geography nerds, and so Kylerin spent a lot of time overnight copying out the maps, which I think actually is going to help them from here on in. I think that's a really cool thing for her to have specified her character doing. And then Barbara, who is the barbarian, because of course she is. That name, why? Barbie has a great background to do with animals and was able to track the crocodile once they'd gotten into the right area of swamp to look for it. I feel bad. There was one point during this that Addie and Hylas began to in character talk to one another and sort of trade information about themselves, and I didn't want to stop it, but because we were about to lose 2 of our players, I ended up having to say, I'm really sorry, I don't want to do this, but we're gonna have to move on so that we can sort of get as far as we can with these 2 still present, which people didn't seem offended by, but I'm concerned about it because I want them to roleplay. They actually, with Barb's natural 20 tracking roll, managed to get to Kindred Maw's nest before the crocodile did, which I thought was really awesome. It meant that they would be able to set themselves up in cool strategic positions before Kindred Maw could arrive, but it turned out not working that way at all because so many of the party were just too far away from the crocodile to attack it. So that didn't exactly pan out the way that I wanted it to. What did pan out the way that I wanted it to, I made a note on Kindred Maw. I gave it the ability to death roll, like a crocodile would, you know, because it's a crocodile. And so there was one point where Orvin had rushed up into combat directly in front of Kindred Maw, and I took the opportunity. I had a little note written that said only Barbara or Orvin would be fair game for the death roll. I'm sure I'm going to pull less punches at higher levels, but at the moment everyone has so few hit points except for Barbara, who has literally twice the amount of any other character. So I had Kindred Maw make a grapple check against Orvin, and the minute that he succeeded, everybody, because I mean we're Australian, every single person around the table gasped and went, oh no, it's a crocodile, it's going to death roll Orvin. And so suddenly everyone was, it's game on. They were trying to get the crocodile to release Orvin as best they could, but Kindred Maw had already dragged the half-orc cleric out into the middle of the water, so Addie had to spend her action dashing just to get that far. And then it came to Orvin's turn, and I said, you can try to break the grapple or you can attack with disadvantage. I gave Orvin all the options. And Kate, Orvin's player, said, I'm going to attack it with disadvantage. And she did, and she missed. And then she went, oh no. Because immediately following Orvin's turn was Kindred Maw. And so she got rolled. I ended up deciding that it would do 1d8 plus 6 damage because that averaged out to exactly the hit points that most party members had. And as it happened, it did exactly 10 hit points to Orvin, taking him out, leaving him prone in the water and drowning. I looked up and several of my players were just horrified. Like Addie and Paul Nedra particularly just looked so concerned that they were about to have a party member die in what is essentially the first session. So the joy I got to take in reminding them of Orvan's half-orc blood that revives him back to 1 hit point as he hits 0 was beautiful. It was glorious. Ah, the fun, the delight. Good. And then the shock and horror on their faces when I revealed that a second crocodile was swimming into the area and that Kindred Maw was actually 2 huge crocodiles. I think it has left them thinking that there might be more Kindred Maws out there. There were only the 2 of them, but it was to explain how this one crocodile was able to sort of push so many creatures out of their feeding zones. And originally it was just going to be 1 crocodile, but adding a 7th player to the action economy, and particularly a monk who could take 2 attacks every turn, that was just a little too unbalanced with the 1 crocodile, so throwing an extra one in there, I think it actually ended up balancing it really well, so I was pleased with how that went. I had described Kindred Maw as having shards of stained glass sticking out of its back and its snout. And so upon killing both crocodiles, a couple of the party members had collected a few of these pieces, particularly Jinx, who likes to keep sort of shiny trophies in her hair. But the big thing that I learnt this time, I've clearly done a terrible job of, in trying to keep track of all the things I need to keep track of as I'm running the game, I've forgotten that so many of my players are new to the game and they don't really understand what their class can do. And I've done a terrible job of reminding them because I'm in the middle of combat, I'm trying to focus on keeping track of initiative, whose turn it is, what's happening, where the enemies are, and so I just completely forgot that maybe Barbara doesn't realize that she can go into a rage, or that Jinx doesn't know that she can give people inspiration. And it only became obvious to me halfway through the Kindred Maw combat, so I'm really gonna have to work to sort of remedy that in the next session. I think next session, instead of continuing the story, I might just have what I've been calling in my head a danger room session, where I just put them in a really simple area. And I've gone through and I've written somewhere on their character sheets, I've upped their hit points to about equal with a 3rd level character of their class, you know, just so that no one dies from like 1 hit, but left all of their abilities at a 1st class level so that we can just focus on those and what they can do right now. And I'm going to pair them up into different teams based on kind of hit point total, but also on utility. So I want Jinx to be paired up with someone who will really benefit from getting inspiration, for example, so I'm probably going to pair her with Kylaren. Whereas the rogue is going to want to be paired with someone who gets into melee combat range with people so that she can get sneak attack advantage, so I'm probably going to pair her with Hylas. Barbara, unfortunately, will probably be on a team solo, but that's fine because she's got something like 40 million hit points by now. And I have a good feeling about that, and we can try a few different combinations of things, and maybe I'll put them all as one team against just a stack of goblin opponents or something. We can just have a session messing around with exactly what your character can do, which hopefully I think it should be fun and help people to kind of understand the combat side of the game. But that's what's going on. I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, I talked forever after the timer finished, but hey, I hope it didn't bore you to death. If you did enjoy it, you can show your appreciation in all the usual ways on YouTube. If you would like to support the channel monetarily, you definitely don't need to, but if you would like to, I have a Patreon. It's in the description below. Apart from that, I'm probably forgetting things. If I do forget something that I needed to tell you, it'll probably go up on the Reddit, which is reddit.com/r/MonarchsFactory. Yeah, I mean, hit me up on Twitter and stuff. That's always good. I like talking to people on Twitter. Apart from that, I can't remember anything else that I need to say, so I guess that's it. I'm done. Email this to your grandma. Play D&D with her. She'll like it. I will see you some other time. Ooh, apparently I was standing in the one position for a really long time because my knees aren't working anymore.